Welcome back, everybody. Today is November 6th of 2021. Most of us woke up to news this morning of a mass casualty incident in Houston, Texas last night, where 8 people have been reported to have died following a crowd crush at the Houston Astro World Festival during the Travis Scott concert. And it's been a while since I remember seeing so many requests for a video, so I figured I'd go ahead and get a post done and get this out today. On this channel, we talk about the language of Gematria, Gematria as it's also called, which is the ancient practice of coding numbers into words and phrases. We always use the standard alphabetic order, as shown on the screen here, 1 through 26, as well as the reduction methods. But what we're actually going to start with today is the 2 large number ciphers that I teach in every one of my videos, Latin and English Gematria, 2 slight variations of the same alphabetic order. Now, for starters, the name Travis Scott has single reduction Gematria of 58. This story was released on a date with 58 numerology when most people are hearing about it. And the Astro World Festival is actually named after an album by Travis Scott called Astro World. And this is a 58-minute album. And when it was released, Travis Scott was 9,958 days old. So the number 58 was already significant to Astro World, and now we get news about a Stampede there on a date with 58 numerology. So I typed out Houston Astro World and noticed a very interesting alignment in these 2 large number ciphers. Now, based on how these ciphers are constructed, it's very rare for the same word or phrase to have the same value in both ciphers. This only happens once, roughly every 1 in 500 times. So this jumped out at me right away, the number 1913. And it just so happens that in the year 1913 was one of the worst human stampedes in American history, at least recent history. In fact, this is the second worst since this date. We also had the Station nightclub fire, which was a fire and a stampede. But this was a really bad one. It was called the Italian Hall disaster, and it was particularly notable because allegedly someone falsely shouted fire in a crowded party, which led to the stampede. And this is really the source of, this phrase that people to this day still say commonly. You can't shout fire in a crowded theater. This is also called the 1913 massacre. And it happened just 1 week before 1914 when the trials occurred. And notice how Italian Hall disaster also has gematria of 1914. Notice how 73 people died in this stampede in 1913. That's the ordinal value of astro. And the word sacrifice also sums to 73. So does ritual sacrifice and solar eclipse. We'll get into the eclipse code as we go. Last night's stampede was 70 months and 3 days after the mayor of Houston took office. Travis Scott was born 73 days before the middle eclipse of 1991, which is one of the most significant solar eclipses of our current time, one I talk about commonly. And his age last night reflected the 73rd prime number. Again, Astro 73, ritual sacrifice 73, 73 people dead in the 1913 massacre. And it's just to show you that there's more to the numbers here. There was a song, I should say, called 1913 Massacre, released in the year 41. And this stands out because 41 is the 13th prime number. But look at who wrote this song. It was a man named Woody Guthrie. And check out his full name. Woodrow Wilson Guthrie sums to 293 in the alphabetic order. Why is that important? Well, the 293rd prime number is 1913. So this is the perfect artist to sing about this massacre which occurred in that year. 293 is another big number. related to this eclipse code. Currently, we're in the period of 2 great American total solar eclipses that create an X over the United States. These eclipses are separated by 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, 6 days, which sums to 293. Now, in Jewish Gematria, this sums to 2423, and that's the exact number of days between these 2 eclipses. This is also a prime number, the 360th, 360 degrees in a circle. Now, if you measure from last night's Stampede to the date of that second great American eclipse, it's 29 months and 3 days. Think about how coronavirus pandemic sums to 293 in the reverse alphabetic order. And when Donald Trump declared that the coronavirus pandemic was a national emergency, it was on the date leaving 293 days in the year. Of course, notice the 56 and the 313. The word coronavirus sums to 56. And 1303, like the 13th of March, the date that it was declared an emergency. So I have a lot of work on the coronavirus pandemic if you want to check out my channel for more. Think about the word corona, the definition of which is the atmosphere of the sun, which is only visible during a total solar eclipse. Of course, there's a massive World Series riddle in this as well. What are the odds that we get a big tragedy at Houston Astro World just 3 days after the Houston Astros lost the World Series? Seems unlikely. Travis Scott is perfect to host this festival. Travis Scott equals 77, so does Scott. And not only does Houston equal 7, in fact, I believe Astro World Festival also 77. If you measure from the date of the Stampede to the date of the next solar eclipse that passes over the state of Texas, where Houston is, you get exactly 707 days. As I explained, this is all connected to the Italian Hall disaster, which also has gematria of 77. And worth pointing out that this disaster occurred literally 1 day after the Federal Reserve Act was passed, which completely changed the money supply in the United States. And I just want to point out that Federal Reserve has 143 gematria, like Houston, Texas. 143. Now, in the reverse alphabetic order, Italian Hall disaster sums to 319. And this is an important number I blog about quite frequently. Check out how old Travis Scott was on the date of last night's concert, 30 years and 190 days. Some of the old guard may recall that there was a song by Prince called 319 on this album. And Prince wound up dying 319 days after his birthday in what was very obviously a Masonic ritual. The word killing sums to 319. And again, this is connected to the World Series, a major sports championship. One of the last major sports championships before this was the Super Bowl. And the Super Bowl was lost by Andy Reid. Notice how he was born on the date March 19th or 319. The Super Bowl this past year was exactly 3,019 days after the death of Andy Reid's son. Let's run those dates just so you can see this here. I think the Super Bowl was on the 7th. Reid's son died in 2012, which was 3,109 days, so 319. Without the end date, this is also exactly 444 weeks. The word killing also equals 444. When Andy Reid lost the Super Bowl, it was the Chiefs' 444th career or franchise loss. Meanwhile, Dusty Baker, who lost the World Series, he now has a playoff record of 40-44 all time as a manager. And this World Series was a tribute to Hank Aaron, the home run king. And think about how the king and Hank both summed to 444. Dusty Baker was on deck when Hank Aaron broke Babe Ruth's record, which was really a big reason why he was in there. Of course, he lost to the Braves, who Hank Aaron played his entire career with up until he went back to Milwaukee in 75. So the name Astro World, this album that Travis Scott released, this is not an original name. In fact, this Astro World Festival was held in the parking lot of the old Six Flags Astro World. And here it is, Six Flags Astro World, closed in 2005. Now, if you measure from the date that this theme park closed, Astro World, to the date of the Astro World tragedy, it's 16 years and 6 days. Well, look at the name Travis Scott in the alphabetic order, 166. He was 6 months, 6 days after his birthday last night. Think about today's date when people are learning about this, 11/6. Of course, 11 times 6 is 66. The first thing that popped into my head when I heard about this story was actually the Astrodome. Remember, this was called the eighth wonder of the world, the world's first domed multi-purpose stadium. The Astrodome, interestingly, opened on the 99th day of the year, which is an upside-down 66. But if you measure from the date that it opened to the date of last night's Stampede, you get 20,666 days. 666, huh? Well, think about Houston and the Astros in connection with space travel. And NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, who's coded with this number 666. And the name Jacques Berman Webster II, which is Travis Scott's real full name, has gematria of 1666 and 3999. So he's got a double 666 in his gematria. And look how old he was on the date of the Stampede, 366 months and 6 days. Now, of course, I commonly discuss how 666 is a moon eclipse number. I have an entire presentation of this, which I can link below in the description. And 666 is connected to 57 in gematria. 666 and 666 both giving 57. The moon has a 57-degree range of declination in relation to the plane of the sun. And in ancient Hebrew, the word for eclipse sums to 57. In English, the word moon equals 57. This year was the Houston Astros' 57th season. See this? The 57th is the Astros. And the Stampede last night occurred on a date with 57 numerology. Big, big important number there, 57. So looking back at this Italian hall disaster from 1913, when you look at the history of this event, where is this? Here we go. The Calumet and Hecla Mining Company. So the people who died in the 1913 massacre were mostly miners and their families who were on strike. And a lot of people think that this mining company intentionally killed them as part of this. Not my theory, just something I read. And I want you to check out the Jewish gematria of this mining company, 1160. Again, today's date, November 6th. But what's more interesting about this is that this is an upside-down 9/11, which is really the primary number of disaster here in the United States. No question why. Of course, 9/11, the date of the worst terrorist attack in U.S. history. if you measure from the date that the album Astro World was released to the date of the Astro World Stampede, it was exactly 1,190 days. And think about how in satanic Gematria, ritual human sacrifice sums to 9/11. That's like the Greek value of total eclipse, 9/11. This festival was sponsored by Live Nation Entertainment. And look what happens when you measure from their date of founding to the date of the Stampede. 11 years, 9 months, and 11 days. Some type of coincidence we're looking at, isn't it? Furthermore, 911 is a prime number, the 156th prime number. And I hope you saw my last video where Henry Ruggs III got in a drunk driving crash. They said that he was traveling 156 miles per hour. Of course, that was also connected to this eclipse code. In ancient Hebrew, the word for eclipse sums to 156, because an eclipse always occurs 1, 5, or 6 lunar phases after the last one. Last night's stampede occurred a span of 156 days before the date of the next total eclipse to pass over Texas, which is on April 8th of 2024, right near Houston. And don't forget, Texas equals 69, like eclipse. And also in the alphabetic order, Houston, Texas, when abbreviated, has that 156. Finally, Houston Astro World has matching gematria with total solar eclipse and blood sacrifice. The word crush also has that 69 gematria like Texas and eclipse. Trying to think if there's anything else worth talking about. There's some more connections to the Houston mayor that I don't really want to get onto, but Houston, Texas also sums to 46 and 62 for the record, just like sacrifice. Did I just see a 134 here? Houston, Texas, 134 in Jewish. So a big solar eclipse riddle there. Solar eclipse, 134. And don't forget, the Houston Astros just lost the World Series, and the MVP of the World Series was named Jorge Soler. And in the last game, they said he hit a ball into the solar system because he literally hit a home run out of the ballpark in Houston. So, yeah, I got a full live stream decoding the World Series, explaining how I was able to predict that the Braves would win in Game 6 several weeks in advance. All you got to do is look at the numbers, and these rigged sports games become very clear after a little closer examination. All right, guys, that'll do it for this video. Thanks to everybody for popping in. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.